Hello everyone, welcome to my 2020 tutorial series. This is going to be a full character model including the rig, facial rigging, and clothing items, along with some animation techniques at the end. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right on in. So for those that are familiar with my classes and the way I teach, every time you start a Maya project, there's one thing you always need to do, and that's create a project folder. So we're going to go to the file over here, and we're going to go to project window. And underneath current project, we're going to click on new, and we're going to go ahead and call this one the dude. You can call him whatever you want, but I'm just going to call him this. As far as location goes, right now it's going to users, my name, documents, my projects, which is where I usually keep my stuff. You can put it on the desktop. It makes it a little bit more accessible, but also makes it a little bit more vulnerable to being deleted. I'm going to change mine from my standard spot, which is right here, to the desktop, just so it's a little bit more visible for you guys to see how you'll move things in and out of the project folder. So I'm going to pick a different location for this one. We're just going to go desktop, and this one will be called dude project. That's right, never mind. Location desktop. I've already named it. There we go. We'll hit accept, and there we go. And you'll look over here on my desktop, and let's see, where did it put it? There it is, the dude. We'll move it over here in the middle. Okay, so the dude that we're going to be doing is this guy right here from Team Fortress. The reference images here aren't perfect, but we can utilize the majority of it, and the areas that aren't very clear, I can help you guys navigate around and figure out what you need to do to complete this model. Okay, so I will make this reference image available through a Dropbox link down below by the description. Okay, so once you've downloaded it, let's pretend you guys downloaded it. This is your reference image for now, and I'm going to open up the dude project folder. And where you want this to go to is your source images. So I'm just going to drag it down here and drop it into my source images. There it is. And this is where anytime you have any kind of materials or textures inside of Maya that are coming in as an export or import, you want them to be inside your source images. That way Maya knows where to look in order to find these materials and plug them, or textures, and plug them into the materials. Okay, we can close this. Now we can get into it. All right, so now we're going to change this over to the modeling tab. And usually I just create some polygon planes, and that's what I use for my reference images. I don't like to use those planes that attach to the actual cameras, just because they aren't so versatile, and they tend to get in the way for me. So I'm just going to create a polygon plane, and in this case, you can see the polygon plane came in, and it's a 10 by 10 polygon plane, and that's a little bit too much geometry for doing reference images. We only need one single polygon, and there's a couple different ways you can go about narrowing this down to a single polygon. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one and go about the way that's the most straightforward, which is just double clicking on this icon for this particular plane, and you can see down here it says width divisions, height divisions, and we want this to be at 1 by 1. So that way it just creates a single polygon. Okay, we'll hit create. There we go. So now it's inside of our scene, and it's one polygon, and let's go ahead and scale it up a bit. So I'm gonna hit R for scale, or we can click on this icon over here. This class is supposed to be an intermediate class to advanced. So I'm going to use primarily hotkeys, so I'll call out the hotkey letter, but I'm not going to be using these guys over here as much, your manipulator tools. I'm just going to use them from over here and use hotkeys to get to them. So R for scale, I'm going to rotate this up, and let's see here, over here we're going to put a 90 degrees inside the rotate X so that it's facing up. There we go. All right, so now I want to attach this material to this guy. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button, and we don't want to use the material that's attached to it by default, Lambert 1. Lambert 1's a no-no. You don't want to mess with Lambert 1, because every time you create an object inside of Maya, it's going to attach a material Lambert 1 to that object. So if we add a texture to it, what's going to end up happening is that texture will be on every object we create from there forward. So we're going to go to the object. We're going to hold down right mouse button. This is the way I like to go ahead and attach materials rather than going to the hypershade. It's just faster and a little bit more of a smooth way of attaching things rather than opening up an entirely different window to get to this. So we're going to go to assign favorite materials and we're going to add in a new Lambert. There it is. And it pops over here to our attribute editor. And it may pop open to your Lambert 2 right away, but for me it didn't. Inside your attribute editor, you can always get to your Lambert or your materials just because by going to the tab on the far right, which over here you can see it says Lambert 2. Let's go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and change this from Lambert 2 to ref side Lambert, and we'll just save that. Okay, press enter or return if you're on a Mac. I'm on a PC. Okay. Also, I feel like I should point out that if you're using anything from my 2016 to my 2020, which is what I'm currently using, all the tools will translate. Everything that was available that I'm going to use in 2020 is the same tools you'll see all the way back to 2016. So don't feel that just because you're not using the same year as me that I might use something that you're unfamiliar with or you won't see in your particular Maya program that you're currently using. Okay, so going forward here, I'm going to go to the color attribute here. I'm going to click on the checker box next to it. That will open up the create render nodes. From here, I'm going to click on the file, and that will attach a file to the Lambert. And now where it says image name, we'll go ahead and click on the folder here. And the dude's source image is right here. And we're going to hit open. There we go. Now it's been attached, but you can't currently see it inside the viewport. And the reason why is because we haven't turned the textures on inside the viewport. So the viewports are optimized to where anything you want to see in that viewport, you have to turn on manually. So currently right now we just have the shader on for the wireframe. We want to add textures to it as well. So we'll just move over here in this little checker ball box here. We're going to click on that. And there we go. Now, I don't necessarily want all this. This is kind of informational overload for our side view. We could work with this, but I don't really want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the UVs to help edit down what I want here. So for one, I'm also going to make this a little bit more narrow, about like so, something like that. And then I'm going to go to my UV editor. And to go there, I'm going to go to the split panel one over here on the left. I'm going to go to panels, panel, and UV editor. That's how I like to get there. There's several different ways to get to the UV editor. There's also this icon here. There's a couple different ways, but this is the way I like to go because this gives me the option to where if I had a second window, which I usually do, I have another monitor on the side here. I can tear it off, go to panels, tear off, and then I can put it on the side. So I have one full screen for my perspective and one screen over here to the right that is my my UV editor or whatever particular editor I'm currently working in. All right, so going forward here, I'm going to go to UV shell mode. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We want to be in UV mode. So UV shell, just as a refresher, makes it to where any island you select, it'll give you the entire island. This can actually work too for us. UV mode will make it to where we can select the individual UVs as if they're vertexes. Now, don't get these confused with vertexes. They are different. UVs work in the UV space only. Vertexes are for both 3D and 2D space. But if we start moving the vertexes around in here, you'll see that both sides, wherever they're connected to, will also be moving. So inside the UV editor, make sure you're using UV or UV shell. Don't move the vertexes or the edges or it'll have some unpredictable results. All right, so I'm going to go to UV mode. It just makes more sense for me. I could be a little more precise with that. And I want to select these two UVs first. I'm going to hit W so my move tool will come up. I'm going to move this edge here to where it comes up and just isolates the side view. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to select these two. And I'm just going to move this over as well to where it just selects the side view, including the hand. Okay, so now you can see over here that, there we go. The side view is isolated, and that's pretty much what I wanted. Now, I do feel like I need to go ahead and take a second. This is obviously not something I drew myself. This is from Team Fortress. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. The guys over there, TAD Entertainment Development Department, they're the guys who made this, not me. I'm just utilizing the reference image just for this lecture. Okay, so going forward, we want to basically do the same thing, but we want the front view, and we can also go ahead and utilize the back view too while we're at it. Primarily, we're going to be using the front and side view, but when it comes to the finishing parts of the project, we'll probably use the back view as well. So while we're at it, we'll just create the back view and maybe just turn off the visibility for a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to duplicate the current one I already have here. Since it already has the material attached to it, I could just duplicate that and then move the UVs to where I need it to go. So I'll just hit Control D. That'll duplicate the current one. You can see over here my outliner now have a second one, but it's in the same spot here. So don't be tricked that it didn't do anything. Don't make multiple iterations of this plane. All I need to do now is just to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it this way here. So let's see here. We're going to add a 90-degree rotation, negative 90 in this case. So it's facing this way. There we go. I'm also going to move the UVs to the appropriate spots. So I'm also going to turn on UV shell mode. This helps a lot if you're working with UVs. That's this icon right here. It just makes it to where you can see the actual island and it makes it easier to manipulate. All right, so I'm going to go to UV shell mode. That will give me the entire island versus just the individual UVs in the corners. And then I can just move the entire island over to the front view. Okay, and it doesn't quite get the hands in here yet. So I'm going to hit R for scale. I'm just going to scale it out in the x-axis till it gets all of it in there. Okay, let's take a look at it from the side here. That looks pretty close to what it's supposed to look like. Right about there is good, I think. And the side view is good. Okay. You're going to have to use a little bit of your own judgment as far as how much the scale is going to be on here. If you want to take my precise measurements, you can. You can see that this is the scale that is for my side here, but I eyeballed the UVs, so you're going to have to kind of look at this and judge for yourself if yours is the same. And same thing for this one, where you can judge for yourself if this is the same with these particular scale settings. Okay, so front and side view is done. I'm going to do the back view too, even though I don't really necessarily need it, at least not for to begin with. So I'm just going to go to object mode again, and I'm going to hit Control D and duplicate this one. There we go. And this one I'm going to move back just a little bit, and I'm going to, since it's, oops, I moved it to the side, move it back just a little bit. And rather than being the front, I'm going to have this be the back. Okay, so that means that I'm going to rotate this into a positive 90, so it's facing the other way. There we go. And then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to move this island over to here. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button, go to UV shell mode, click on the guy, and I'm going to move this island over here, and I'll hit R for scale just to scale it down a little bit so I can fit this guy in here. There we go. Okay, that's good. All right, so like I said, I don't really need this one right here at the moment. So I'm going to make sure I name all these properly, and then I'm going to turn off the visibility for this one. So I'm going to do ref back. This is going to be ref front. And this one's going to be ref side. Okay, so we got all three of these. That's good. So I do want to point out, if you're doing your own reference images, you want to make sure some things that are consistent. So you want to make sure, for instance, that if you're doing the face, that these facial features line up. So you see how his chin, those match up, the nose matches up in the appropriate spots. Hand length, that they're the same, where the feet are, the knees are, these things are all lining up. So if you're making your own, make sure that your reference images match up on both sides. Otherwise, it's going to be frustrating for you to create this in 3D space, because when you go from one view to the next, you'll notice that there's some there's some inconsistencies, which will make it to where you're pushing and pulling back and forth, and you'll just, it'll be one of those hair pulling situations. Okay, so we have our reference images now at this point. Now we want to go ahead and make sure they're in the appropriate locations. So I'm going to drop a cube into the scene to begin with, This is usually what I use to, at least with my students, to decide where my reference images need to be pushed off to. So we're going to go into our 4 panel. So this icon right here. You can also press spacebar in the open area here really quickly, and it'll open up your 4 panel as well. Okay, so remember we have to turn on textures in each one of these views so that we can see the textures in here. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the textures in this view. Okay, so this is the back, and we don't want to see this one right now, right? So we can come over here into our channel box, and we're just going to press 0, and that will turn off the visibility for that. And I'm also going to freeze the transforms while I'm here. Okay, click on the little snowflake. All right, moving on. Now we're going to look over here, and I can see that the front view here is actually facing the wrong way because this is black. So we can flip this around so this is actually facing the, oh, and these are actually, they're both, they're flipped. So let's see here. This is supposed to be my front view, and this is supposed to be my side view. You can see that it says side down here. You can see it says front down here. So I got them flipped around. Not a big deal. We can fix this. So we'll take this one, and we will rotate it to where it says 0 degrees. Okay, and we'll take the other one, and we'll put a 90. There we go. So now in the side view you can see the picture, which is what we want, and the front view you can see the picture, which is what we want. So that's good. Now we want to make sure that where we put these reference images is away from the cube. So, and in a way that the cube is still viewable inside each one of these viewports. So starting with the side view, if I move it this way, you'll see the box disappears, which tells me that the reference image is in front of the cube. So I need to push it this way. I'm going to push it off. Oops. Close it off. There we go. And this one here, we're going to push this one back as well. There we go. So those two are now away from my workspace. So now I can model this and not have to worry about this being impeded by either of these reference images. Okay, so I can exit out of my 4 panel for now. Okay, so last step is that I want to make sure that both these guys are actually protected so that if I actually click on them, I don't accidentally move them. For one, let's go ahead and make sure that both of them are frozen. So we're going to click on the freeze transforms and center pivot. Center pivot will just make it to where if the pivots were not located in the center, they will now be located in the center of each object. And freeze transforms just makes it to where now if they actually do get moved, we can just go back over here, zero out the translate, and it'll pop it back where it needs to be. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so next we want to take both these guys and we're going to put them inside of a reference layer. So we're going to click on in our channel box layer editor, and we'll even include the one that's hidden currently. And we'll click on this little icon over at the bottom of your channel box layer editor. It looks like a little piece of paper with a ball on it. This will create a new layer, and it'll take the selected objects and add them to the layer. So that's the reason why we have all 3 selected. And then we click on this icon. Okay, so now it says layer 1. I can just double click on this guy and call this one ref images. Now make sure that if you're putting a space between these that you put an underscore, or if you're not going to put a space, just use camel case. If you put a space, it'll tell you that it doesn't like to have names that have spaces in them. Just an FYI. Okay, so now we have that. And then if we click on this empty box over here 2 times, now it's in reference mode. So now we can't accidentally select these reference images anymore. So that's good. That's what we want. Okay. So we're not going to actually start with the cube, and actually I think that we're going to stop the lesson currently where it's at. So we're just going to save the scene. We're going to go to File, Save Scene As, and it automatically finds the directory for us. So it says Users, Coral, Desktop, The Dude, Scenes. If it didn't navigate to this part here, you might have to set the project. Go to File, Set Project, and then you can go ahead and find the dude project folder, click Set, and now it will find it. So we'll go to Save Scene As, and we're just going to call this one the dude. And I usually put the phase of modeling that we're currently in, whether in modeling, rigging, animation, any of those things. I usually put in which iteration we're currently in. So I'm going to put in modeling for now and just do Save As. Continue. If that pops up, don't worry. That's just telling you that you're using a student copy of Maya, unless you have a professional copy, in which that won't pop up. But I am an instructor over at college, so I'm using a student copy. All right, so that's going to be it for today. I hope to see you guys in the next lesson, and we'll continue with modeling our guy. Thanks. See you guys next time.